Alright guys, what we're going to do today is we're going to go back through genetics vocab and then learn how to do Punnett squares. But if you know the vocab, Punnett squares are super easy. So let's go through what genetics is again. So genetics, it's just going to be the study of heredity. And if I look at the word heredity, heredity just means I'm going to pass on traits. Right? And of course, where do you get your traits from? Well, you get your traits, remember, you get one from mom and you get one from dad. That's why when we talked a long time ago about sexual reproduction, that if your mom, right, here's her egg and then here's your dad's sperm, that they're going to have some type of trait, right? That's going to be right here, like maybe she has a blue stick and then maybe your dad has a pink stick. Well, when those two come together, right here, and that's just going to be fertilization, and my fertilization is going to make that zygote. Well, inside that zygote, he's going to have the combination of the pink and the blue stick from your mom and from your dad, which makes sense because you're going to be a muddled mess of both of them. But when we're talking about genetics, we need to make it a lot easier. And so when we look at these sticks, right? So like this stick and this stick over here, we're going to represent those by letters. And so I can either have a capital letter or I can have a lowercase letter, right? When you combine those, right, this is my genotype. So a genotype is just the combo of alleles, and we'll come back to that word. But since you get one from mom, one from dad, you can either get two big ones, one from mom, one from dad. You can get two little ones, one from mom, one from dad, or you can get a big and a little one. Well, those all have names, and so if you have two big ones that are the same, that's a homozygous, because homo means same. And since these are capital letters, that's going to represent the dominant trait. These two right here, they're the same, homozygous, but since they're little letters, that means they're recessive. And we'll go back to what those words mean too. And then I have a big and a little. Those are different, so that's a hetero, because hetero means zygote, or hetero means different. And that's going to be heterozygous, but it's still going to be dominant. All right, so let's go back through vocab super quick. When I talk about alleles, right, an allele is going to be one of these two letters. It's either this guy or this guy. An allele is just an alternative form of a trait. And so if I'm talking about a trait, right, maybe my trait is height. All right, well, what are my forms of height? I can either be tall or I can be short, right? So that's an allele. An allele is just an alternative form of a trait. So if I have a trait, something broad, the specifics of it, those are my alleles, and I'm going to represent each of those with a letter. So now, when we come over here to dominant and recessive, all right, if it's a dominant trait, that means I only need one copy of the gene to express it. And so if we're talking about height, right, if I get a big letter, right, because that's what we're going to use for dominant. If I get a big letter from one of my parents, then I'm going to show that trait regardless. So that's why this is dominant, because I have two big letters. That means I'm going to show the trait. This guy, he doesn't have any big letters, so he's going to show the recessive trait. This guy, because he has one big one, that guy is going to overshadow him, and I'm still going to express it. If I look at a recessive trait, so recessive means I need two copies of the gene to express it. And so if we were talking about height, okay, well, let's say tall is my big A and short is my little a. This guy over here, since I have at least one big A, he's going to be tall. And this guy right here, since he doesn't have any big A's, excuse me, since he doesn't have any big A's, he's going to show the recessive trait because he has to have two copies of it, so he's short. And this guy, since he has at least one big letter and he only needs one, that means he's going to show the tall trait. Okay, so those are your vocab words. But now that we know vocab words, we can start predicting we can start predicting what my offspring are going to look like. And that's where Punnett squares come in. So a Punnett square. Right? Punnett squares we're just going to use to predict offspring numbers. So let's pretend that here's my mom, right? And maybe my mom, well, let's pick out a trait first. All right, trait. Let's do height, since we keep talking about height, right? And as far as height goes, I can either be tall, which will be my dominant allele, or I can be short, which is going to be my little allele. So maybe my mom is heterozygous. Heterozygous. And what's heterozygous mean? Remember, hetero means different, so she's going to have one big letter and she's going to have one little letter. And let's say dad. Okay, how about dad be homozygous? Let's just pick one. How about recessive? All right, well, homo means same, and recessive means I have two little letters. So here's my dad's genotype. So what we're going to do is we're going to cross these two. So we're going to pretend mom and dad are going to have sex, and we're going to predict their offspring. So here's my mom's genotype, and we're going to cross it with dad. All right, so to set up a Punnett square, super easy. If you can draw a window pane, you can draw a Punnett square. So here's my square, make it look like a window pane. All right, one parent goes on top, so here's my mom, and so I'll put an allele over this box and an allele over this box. See, it went right there. And then my dad, I'm going to put him on the side. So here's an allele, here's an allele. Now, all you have to do is kind of use the lattice method and draw it down and draw it over. So in this box, it'll be in a big and a little letter. In this box, I draw this down. I'm going to draw this one all the way over, so I have little, little. In this box down here, I'm going to draw this one down, draw this one over, so I have a big and a little. And then on this one, draw it down, draw it all the way over, and this is little, little. So now, the genotypes that I see here in my box are going to be what my offspring look like. So if I look, I have 4 boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we just have to count. So let's go through our genotypes. Genotype. Remember, genotypes, I can either be big, 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 little, little, little. So let's count. How many boxes have 2 big letters? Not that guy, not that guy, not that guy, not that guy. So 0% of my offspring are going to have 2 big letters. All right, how about my heterozygous, my big A, little a? I have 1 box here and 1 box there. So that means 50% of my offspring are going to have the heterozygous genotype. And then for little a, 1, 2, I have 50% like that. And so then we can go to phenotype. Remember, phenotype is just the physical expression. So out of my phenotypes, I can either be tall or I can be short. Well, how many boxes have at least 1 big letter? That one and that one. So 50% of my offspring will be tall. And then if I look there, 50% of my offspring are going to be short. So when I cross those 2 parents, now I can start predicting, be like, oh, okay, well, I bet you half of their children are going to be tall, half of them are going to be short. So let's do another. We'll do a couple examples. Make sure we're okay with it. All right, let's do flower color. All right, so flower color. This is my trait, and then my alleles. Let's make them either be purple or they can be white. All right, purple is going to be dominant, so he's going to be my big letter. White is going to be recessive. There's my little letter. So let's pretend my parents, let's say my mom is hetero, so she's going to be big little, and let's say my dad is hetero too, and so he's going to be big little. Since these are both hetero, what color are they? Remember, purple is dominant to white, so my mom, she would be purple, that's her phenotype, and my dad, he would also be purple, because that's his phenotype. So now we want to predict what their offspring will look like. So we just draw a Punnett square. So there's my square. We'll put 1 parent on top. So there's this mom, allele over each box. Here's my dad, allele over here. So now we just do my lattice method again. So remember, so draw that down, draw that over. So this box will be big A, big A. Draw this one down, draw this guy all the way over. So this will be big A, little a. Draw this guy down, draw this guy over, big A, little a. Draw this guy down, draw this guy over, little a, little a. So now we can start predicting what the offspring will look like. Let's do genotype first. Remember, genotypes can either be homozygous dominant, heterozygous, or homozygous recessive. So let's count. How many boxes have the homozygous dominant genotype? So you just have to look. Nope, 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 that one does. So out of 4 boxes, think about quarters, right? This will be 25% will have the homozygous dominant genotype. All right, how about heterozygous? Well, we already counted that guy. This guy's hetero, this one's not. So 2 of the 4 boxes, so that's 50%. And then homozygous recessive, he's that last little one. So there's my genotypes, right? A quarter of my offspring will be homozygous dominant, 50% will be hetero, and then 25% will be homozygous recessive. So now let's do phenotype. Remember, phenotype is physical, and I can either be purple or I can be white. Remember, purple was dominant. So how many boxes have at least one big letter? I have 1, 2, 3, not that guy though. So if I count quarters, 25, 50, 75. So 75% of my offspring will be purple, and then my last 25% of my offspring will be white. See, that's how, and this is how you can have parents who have dominant traits, but then you still get an offspring that has recessive, because those parents right here, they're known as a carrier because they show the dominant, but they carry the recessive trait with them. All right, let's do one more. Okay. So how about, well, let's see, what our trait to be? All right, how about trait be eye color? And then my alleles, how about my eye color can either be brown, we'll make that the dominant color, or we can have blue eyes, which is recessive. So let's say my mom, how about my mom be homozygous dominant, so she's going to have brown eyes. And then my dad, let's have him be homozygous recessive, let's have him be blue eyes. So now, I can set up my Punnett square. Put one parent on top, put one parent on the side. And so now, let's fill in our alleles, or our genotypes. This guy will be big A, little a. This guy, big A, little a. This guy over here, big A, little a. This guy right here, big A, little a. All right, so let's look at our genotypes. So genotype, I can either be big, 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 little, little, little. How many were all bigs? Nope, 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 nope. So that's 0%. How many were hetero? 100%. And how many were recessive? 0%. And so then, if I look at phenotype, remember pheno is physical, phenotype. All right, well, how many children are going to have brown eyes? How many children are going to have blue? All of them have at least one big letter. So that means 100% of their children will be brown-eyed, 0% will be blue-eyed. But these children will all be a carrier for the blue trait. And so if I crossed one of these kids, so let's say this kid over here, and maybe he married a person who's also hetero, so AA, that means 25% of their children will have blue eyes. So that's how, again, you can be a carrier for a trait and then pass that trait on to your offspring if you have another carrier that you're going to have a child with. Other than that, that's Punnett squares. Pretty simple. You know that if you ever have any questions, you come in and ask me.